My name is Liam Coyle. She says I have to speak loud. My name is Liam Coyle, just like Liam Neeson, the actor, except that guy's richer than me. And better looking too, now to think about it, Liam Neeson. But I'm not from Lebanon, as you may tell from the accent. So originally I came from, where? Where? This accent? Ireland, good. No, New York City. This is where they all come. Down in Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm originally from Ireland. I came over here in '85. When I came over here first, I lived in Worcester, Massachusetts. Then I moved up here to Hartford and eventually over to Lebanon. And I've been in education all my life, and I've always kind of had a fascination with cemeteries and gravestones, and I usually give a talk on what's called Bones and Stones. This talk here. I actually teach a course on it as well. And I've always had a fascination with graveyards and so forth. And I think it must have come from my mother. When I was about, guess, 8 or 9 years of age, well, we come from a large Irish family. There was 13 in the family. That's average in Ireland. You know, 10 or 11, 12 was quite average in the 50s. So there's 13 in our family. And my mother every Sunday used to take us by the hand and walk us up to the cemetery and walk us all around the graves of all the past generation of relatives. And it's kind of neat the way they do it back home compared to here where everybody's so mobile in America and travelling around. And back in Ireland, for example, in my hometown, you could go up and she could say, well, there's your grandmother there, and there's your great-grandmother there, and there's your great-great-grandmother, going back to famine days, because they're all in the one, you know, the one cemetery. And in America, everybody's so mobile, people are buried all over the place. But it's nice to have that kind of lineage and to really go back and see kind of where you came from and what was your own personal history. I think that's important for everybody to have some idea of where they came from and who their ancestors were and so forth, because it's from the past basically that we do kind of learn what worked in the past and what didn't work in the past, and hopefully we can try newer things in the future that will work in the past. I think history is well important, family history, political history. I mean, I don't think you can have any understanding of the world today if you don't understand history. I mean, the very geographical boundaries or political boundaries that we're living on, who determined those boundaries, where were they determined in history, wars and events, it's all so important in history. And where I come from back home in Ireland, when you walk around Europe, I can honestly say that every single foot of land that you walk over sometime in the past belonged to somebody else and has been fought over time and time again by this nation or that nation. That's the way Europe is. America is a slightly newer history, relatively new history. 1492 and Johnny come latelys to the world, you know, compared to the European model. My mother used to drag me around the gravestones and so forth, and I think that's where I got the interest in it, you know. And we'd go up about 2 after lunch, about 2 o'clock after dinner on Sunday, we'd walk around and we'd stay there till about 4 in the evening. I could never figure out why she was so anxious and taking me around and not just me, the whole family, around the graveyard. And then after that, we'd get down to the grandmother's house. That was my father's mother. And it wasn't until much later I learned that she didn't get on with her. She didn't get on with the grandmother. I guess that's why we spent so long in the cemetery, the short of the time in the house, you know. I don't know. But cemeteries too as well, like it's kind of like, it's a communication with the present and the past. That's what I find. It's like a dialogue with the past. It's a fascinating thing how people and how cultures handle death and gravestones and markings and so forth. And that's what I'd like to give a short talk on today. Also, Fran Hatchett is here. Fran, do you like to stand up and show yourself? And this is Fran, and she's a historian from the town who's done all the work on the Lebanon's Civil War.
That's my forte, is the Civil War, but for Liam's talk today, I've selected a few of Lebanon's or the Upper Valley unique ones. I'm giving a talk in the fall on our Civil War voice and the ones that I've found, and they're scattered around too.
So this is our Lebanon resident, historical resident on the Civil War from Lebanon and so forth. And I find it fascinating, the stuff that she's uncovered. For example, the black slave in America who died in Lebanon, and then the daughter who was black died in Lebanon. So the slave graves in Lebanon we have, and it was completely unknown to me until Fran researched this and so forth. So she's present that when I'm finished. So anyhow, guys, I think that graveyards is a wonderful thing. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about markers, grave markers. Basically, they can be made from anything. They used to make them out of simple field stone, going back to the 1600s. Later, they would have used slate, which we can still see around, granite, marble, even iron, and I've seen wooden ones as well, which don't last that long. But grave markers in America basically are all kinds of materials, whatever was handy. Sometimes in the field they would just use a field stone and put a name on it, RIP and so forth. Weathering has been a huge problem for gravestones in Lebanon, and not just Lebanon, but for the whole northeast. Unfortunately, they're disappearing fast, the whole face of them, as I'll show you, because of the severe weathering conditions, and they're not being protected, and that's unfortunate. If you ever get a chance and you see a marble headstone, just rub your hand along the top of it, and instead of being as smooth as a baby's bum, you'll find that we call it sugaring. It's like rubbing your hand across a sugar cube, all the little grains. That's acid rain. It's destroying it. And many of the headstones that we have here in Lebanon, I would put it to you, they'll not be here a generation later. Many will be gone, one generation from now. And that's kind of sad. All right, guys, let me just start by showing you some of the slides that I have here. And there's many ways of marking your grave and so forth, and what you want to do in life. And yeah, you can hit the lights, please. I always thought to myself, like, if I had the money, so if you want to invest in me, go ahead. What I'd love to do is when you die, what I'd love to invent is a big, you walk up to the grave and you would hit a hidden beam, and out of the grave would pop a hologram, what do you call them?
Hologram.
A hologram of Coyle, and I would jump up and say, "Hi guys, my name is Liam Coyle and I lived," and I would give a whole speech. Wouldn't that be something great, you know? Seriously. Now, some cemeteries today, what they're doing actually is, I don't know if you know what a QRL is for cell phones, for a smartphone. Yes?
We can't hear you on this side of the room.
Okay, let's stand over here. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for telling me. Oh. Is it on? Is it on? Hello? 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 That's better. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Thank you. You're a wonderful audience. Huh? Well, you can tell the one I'm wearing now, I'm really kind of smooth, though. Yeah. Sorry, what was that? Yeah. So, holograms, like, is one thing you could use for, in the future, you may see them. But they're actually using QRL codes now, and if you've got a smartphone, when you walk up to the grave, you just simply put it against the QRL code, and up will pop the information on the individual. Okay, let me start with this one, please, here. Don't trip, Coyle. Some of these are kind of humorous. Oh. Let me go back there, guys, first of all. Is that the first one?
I think so.
Yeah, all right. So, guys, this first one here, basically, these are real ones. They're not, I didn't make these up. These are genuine headstones, for example. Where am I? That is there. These are genuine headstones, for example, and this one here is from Maryland. Here lies an atheist all dressed up, but no place to go. He's an atheist, doesn't believe in God. The first one's a humorous, kind of. This one is in Georgia. Here lies the father of 29. He would have had more, but he didn't have time. And I tell you, that guy would have more than 29. So that's one I took from Georgia. This one here came from Pennsylvania. In memory of Ellen Shanton, age 26, who was accidentally burned March 21st by the explosion, a lamp filled with non-explosive burning fluid. So this person died
from the explosion from the lamp that was filled with non-explosive fluid. Not so good. I expected this, but not so soon. That one's in Nashua. Actually, it's the senator in Nashua. Alabama. Beneath the stone, my wife does lie. She's now at rest. So am I. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but just be careful, by the way, what you do in life, because what's put in the headstone lasts forever. I should mention that because the one slide I haven't got today is Justin Morrill's homestead up in Stratford, Vermont. And Justin Morrill, with the homestead, he was senator, passed the Land Grant College Act and so forth. His headstone's up there. After he died, he was a very wealthy man. He left all the money to his children, and they refused to contribute to his headstone. And there's a beautiful headstone. You can see it on 3 sides, all about his life and his children. And if you go to the back, there's a small comment that says, this stone cost, and I forget the figure, like $3,000, which was contributed by the town, and not 1 penny from his children. So I says, geez, boy, I say, so watch what you do in life. Save for posterity in stone. Next one. If any man gives his property to his children before he is dead, take this mallet and hit him on the head. Oh, this is upside down. Here lies the body of Jonathan Blake, stepped on the gas instead of the brake. Oh, this is upside down. I'm sorry about this. Here lies the body of the dentist DeMille in the biggest cavity that he ever will fill. And that's in California. I wonder why these are upside down.
No, I can rotate them if you'd like.
Can you?
Yeah, there's a button.
Go ahead.
Right there's the arrow, the curvy arrow.
Why don't you sit up there, Kieran, do it? All right, moving up to New York, up towards Ticonderoga, where the Fort Ticonderoga is. Can you go straight up?
Yeah.
Sit in that chair, you do it. Come on, get my helper, I'm paying you for this. Keep going.
You're not.
Well, it should be. This one here, yeah. All right, guys, so up in Ticonderoga, you know where Lake Champlain is? And if you go up to Lake Champlain, like, that's where Fort Ticonderoga is, at the very bottom of the lake. And the lake's about 110 miles long. And if you travel the whole way up the lake to the end, then you go into the Richelieu River, which takes you out into the St. Lawrence River. And from the St. Lawrence River, you have a choice. You can take a left and go to Quebec, or you can take a right and go out to the Atlantic Ocean and across to France and England and Europe and so forth. So basically what I'm trying to explain to you is whoever controlled Lake Champlain basically controlled the settlements of the whole northeast and the pace of the settlements. They were basically the highways. So the British would build a fort down in Ticonderoga. It was originally a French fort, and the British would build one opposite. So there's a whole line of forts along Lake Champlain, and that basically was because of the French-Indian War. Okay, this gravestone marks Duncan Campbell, who died in the battle up at Ticonderoga. And Duncan Campbell was a Scottish officer. He was a lord of a castle. He was living in Scotland. And one night while he was living in Scotland, it was a wild stormy night. The lightning was flashing, the rain was beating off the doors, and I guess he was reading his Valley News or whatever he was reading in the 1700s in Scotland. And there's a knock came to the door, and when he opened the door, he saw this guy standing there who was very dishevelled, wet, soaked. And he asked Duncan Campbell for sanctuary, somewhere to stay safe. He said that men were following him. So Duncan Campbell swore on his dark little knife that he would have sanctuary in his castle that night. And the man went into a room down the stairs. Duncan Campbell went back to his room, and he was sitting there, and inside a half an hour there's a second knock on the door. And this time there was 3 men standing outside, and he knew them, Duncan Campbell. They're friends of his. And they asked Duncan Campbell, did he see anybody come around the area or near the castle? And Duncan knew that he had your man in the basement, but he says no, because he promised him sanctuary, and he says no, I haven't seen anybody. So Duncan asked the three people, why do you want them? And they answered, because that man killed your cousin tonight. So now Duncan Campbell was getting upset because he'd given sanctuary to a man who'd killed his own cousin. And he wasn't too sure what to do about it. He went down eventually about 2 o'clock in the morning. This is all recorded, by the way, in history. Duncan Campbell awoke and he saw his cousin who was killed standing in front of him. And Duncan Campbell was told by that ghost that I will see you at Carry On. That's all he says. I'll see you at Carry On. Well, that came to pass, and Duncan Campbell lived in Scotland, and eventually the war started over here in America, the French-Indian War. America was kind of a sideshow, it was really a European war. But the Scottish regiment was sent over to attack this fort, Ticonderoga. And the night before they attacked Duncan Campbell, he was very nervous about the attack because he knew that he was leading it. It was basically a suicide charge going up against the cannons and the guns of the fort. He knew they wouldn't be making half to be killed in the first assault. And as Duncan Campbell was walking around the camp that night, he heard a group of Indians talking, and one of them mentioned the name Carry On. And he heard that name for the second time. He went over to the Indians and says, what the hell? What are you talking about? And the Indian says, the fort Carry On. That was the old Indian name for it. Today it's called Ticonderoga. So Duncan Campbell, he led the attack in the morning. And in the first rounds of shot, he was hit and killed. Duncan Campbell. This is where he's buried. His grave up at Ticonderoga. And the whole event is immortalised in a poem by Robert Louis Stevenson. And the story of Robert Louis Stevenson called Duncan Campbell. And that's his grave. It is there. Okay. Jane Cray. Jane Cray was 17 years of old. This is the ones up at New York. Jane Cray. That one. Jane Cray was 17 years of age. Beautiful young girl. She was actually, believe it or not, a British sympathiser during the Revolution. She was actually on the British side, not the American side. And her boyfriend, or her fiancé, was a British soldier. So she was travelling in her horse from Saratoga across to Ticonderoga to meet her boyfriend when she's captured by the Indians and she was killed. The Indians then proceeded to scalp her, took her beautiful red hair, scalp off. They never saw that often. The British officer, when he found the body without the scalp, he went totally insane. And as far as I've learned in history, he ended up his days in Canada. After the American won the revolution, he was a British sympathiser, so he moved to Canada, and he finished off his days up there insane, talking to the red scalp of his fiancée, which he bought back from the Indians. So this is Jane Cray, the woman that, the most thrilling incident in the American Revolution. She was the one that really started the war. Unfortunately, she was on the British side, but has brought great sympathy to the American Revolution. Sarah Gordon. I don't know why they're all upside down.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Next one. That's Duncan Campbell again. Alright, they're okay now. This one here took around in School Street. Fran, do you like to talk about it?
No, you do
All
a
right.
better job.
This is slate. This is a slate one here. And you'll find out that you can actually almost tell by looking at a stone the date. Because we go through about 3 periods of gravestones. The original kind of Puritan period where you get the angels with the wings and the crossbones and skulls, and very dark period because the Puritans wanted nothing to do with the Pope of Rome and wouldn't put anything religious on their tombstones, except I'll show you examples later on of skulls and crossbones and so forth. Then you come to the Grecan period here, and you'll get the Grecan urn and the willow tree and so forth. Then you come to the Federal period. So you can tell actually by looking at the stone, first of all, what's it made of, and by the design you can almost tell within 10 or 20 years when it was done. Elizabeth Shippa died December 26th in her 81st years. And usually down below the headstone, this is also School Street Cemetery. And if you look down here at the bottom, if you take patience, if you scoop away some of this soil here, you'll usually find, not always, but quite often you'll find the stonemaker and they put his name on it, who made the stone, and the price that he charged for that particular headstone. Okay, so here's the Greek urn, the wool and so forth, so you can tell the period that it's in, towards 18. This is one taken looking down at it, straight down the stone. And I took this one to show you an example of what happens to the stone. This will be gone inside a year or two. There's no cap on it. There should be a bronze cap or something to protect the stone. So what will happen is the rain will go down there and they fall. It'll turn the ice will push the stone apart, it'll crack and be gone next year. So that'll not last a couple of years, that particular stone. This is one that was broken, and I just wanted to show probably the worst thing you could do with a broken stone is to use cement to put it together. Never use cement. It never shows, it will crack again. Today we have to use epoxy for it. Again, 1788 to 1800. So this one here, when you see this kind of design, they're about 1800. A memory of John Martha Porter, who was born Bridgewater, Massachusetts, Massa, and died 1800, aged 20 years. And you usually get a little poem or something here, a line they say, can you make it larger? Can you, is there an arrow down there at the bottom? No. To increase the size of it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Take it up, please. Bring that up there, Kieran.
There.
No, you can't do it there, so it doesn't matter. I'll show you ones later on. I took this one because you have to bring it down a bit, Kieran, bring this down.
It's already down.
Oh, this is right down.
Yeah.
I took this one because it's unusual. It's the only one I've ever seen. I'm sure there's others, but this is the only one I've seen where the stonesmith had the one stone to two graves. So you use the one stone to make two headstones. I've not seen that before. Usually you'll find too, if you look at gravestones and you walk about the cemetery like Lebanon, or it doesn't matter where the town is, if you look at the age of children dying, it's quite often you'll see a lot of children dying in the same year, within a couple of months. So what's happening? So say 1800, all the children are dying in Lebanon in 1800. In June, July, August, what's going on?
Rabies.
Well, it wouldn't be rabies. It's probably smallpox or yellow fever. One of the fevers hit the town and all the kids, all the young children are dying within 2 or 3 months each other. Yeah.
When I documented that stone, I assumed that the small part was for the younger child and the tall one was for the older child.
That's not.
That's what I'm assuming.
I would assume too. The same, just. Again, 1800 because of the style here. All the style shows it's around 1825. And again, the boards were working at this. Again, Grecan period. This is one that they tried to repair with cement and obviously it didn't do such a good job. This is one actually with 3 again. And it's only in School Street I've seen these. I haven't seen them anywhere else. I'm sure there are, but I haven't come across them. Sometimes if you see one like this, you would think this is broken off at the top, the column. Not so, this is the way it's designed. Sometimes at the top here, they'll hang a veil over the top of it, marble veil, cut out of stone. The idea of this is to show that if someone's life was cut off early, someone died young, basically is what they're saying. And if you look at the heads down at the bottom, it'll tell you that this one lived the full life, this one didn't. And as I say, sometimes they'll put a marble veil over the top of it to show you how sad it is, the person died young. This one's strange because they didn't put the date they died on it. 1823, didn't put a death date on it, which to me was unusual. This one's got the Masonic symbol on it, really. And now this is a marble stone here, so slightly later, 1870s. So now we're up in the late end of the 1800s, they start using marble in the different headstones. This is Pine Ridge Cemetery, and unfortunately these ones are the ones that are most deteriorating that I can see around. Can you turn it? Down at the bottom.
One sec. This one?
Yeah. I'll leave it there, I'll do it.
Oh, it's way back. Oh, there it is down there.
There. Okay, again, there's nothing in that one except the sheaf of wheat. So MH, I don't know what that means. This is over at Pine Ridge Cemetery. I took these ones. Kieran. Now these are the older ones here because you can see the angel's wings here. So this goes back to the late 1700s. Again, there's not a whole lot of writing to see on it. It's wore away so badly. Son of Mr. and Mrs. Yeah.
Moses Hebert.
Wow. Kieran. Again, we're up to the 1800s for this style here. And you can see the lichen on the top of the headstone too as well. Age 2. Wow. Fran.
Corporal Samuel Lothrop. He was one of our Revolutionary soldiers. That's where most of them are, but a lot of them, the stones are just gone.
Wow.
This is Pine Tree Cemetery?
That's
Yeah.
Pine Tree Cemetery.
End of this
The
road.
one you asked about.
Turn that one, please. So this is one of the older ones here, and it's actually one of the better ones. You can make it out. So it's earlier because you come back to the Puritan kind of symbols up here at the top. And this guy lived to what, 34 years of age. Some of them surprised me. Like I see them living to 70 and 80 way back in the 1700s. Like I wouldn't have thought they would have lived that long, but men of them did. No Blue Cross Blue Shield back then. And you see how this is weathered. I wouldn't give it more than 2 years and it'll be gone, unfortunately. Again, there's nothing left that one. That's just gone. Turn that one. Same thing again, guys. It's very hard to read it. So these ones really should be protected. Do you want to turn it?
That's one of those faces that.
Yeah. The old Puritan face. I'll show you ones in a second better than that. In memory of Miss Lucy's wife
Second
of
one.
second wife, wow, yeah. Who died.
David Bliss.
I should have these two. I thought I had them turned, you know. Fran,
Captain Joseph Wood, he was also one of our Revolutionary soldiers and one of the first settlers of Lebanon.
One of the first settlers?
Yeah.
Wow.
this is just showing you the earlier Greek style. This is ones that are broken. They're gone. I took a couple of modern ones to show you. It's strange that today in America, it's really in America I see it, like I don't see it in Europe. It's completely, the gravestones now have nothing religious on them at all. Like it's quite often to see a headstone with, usually with something religious, a cross or a prayer or something. These ones have nothing. It's just like the name Brown, and he wants to remember to get for fishing or for hunting or whatever. There's no religious meaning in the headstone at all, and that's happened this last 30, 40 years in America. Here's another one. I showed this actually one day in class, and one of the kids says, "Mr. Coyle, that's my uncle." That wasn't too good. So Steve Hull, again, he wants to be known for hunting or fishing. Nothing religious on these ones.
Ooh, look at that.
These are all made up in Barry, up at the Rock of Ages. That's where these are carved, up in Barry.
It's not carved.
LeBlanc.
School bus.
Yeah. Again, there's nothing religious in these headstones, which kind of like, from my background, I'm surprised, you know, but that's the way it's going, just. Here's one retired, but he's not buried there. It's just a marker, and it's quite often you'll see this, at some time you'll get a marker here where the body's not there, the body's down in Florida or whatever, but they'll mark the grave where they let you know who's there. This guy just wanted to be known for, I don't know, snowmobiling and bike riding. He's away, but we will ride again. No, he's dead. He'll not ride again. Now, here's the ones that took over at Portsmouth that are slightly different. This has gone back to the Puritan period, and watch the headstones here at the top. These are some of the better stones that I've seen. 1690, these ones, this whole lot. Again, look at the headstone, the carving, and it's the same carver that, well, it actually it's 3 different carvers did the whole cemetery with the headstones. Very famous. Of course, yeah, there, look at that, that's fantastic. I think it's beautiful. Again, this is Puritan. They wanted to get away from the Roman Church, so they had nothing to do with crucifixes or rosary beads or anything like that. So this is the symbol they would have to remind you that death was coming. You're going to turn to dust and ashes, kind of thing. Very dark kind of thing, you know. Age 74. So this is the master carver that did these ones. Here's the same one. And this is showing you in the cemetery as you go in who the carver was. And these are the 3 carvers that did all the headstones. And they're probably, to me, the best preserved that ever I've seen around the northeast. These are the best. But again, they're not protected, and I kind of worry about the future of them. Oh, this is just a village where I took the photographs. Does anybody know? Lee?
No.
Portsmouth? Yeah.
Is it what?
That's where Portsmouth, yeah. I took that one just over the ocean at Portsmouth. Can you turn that one, Keon? Here lies buried the body of Captain Friedman, died in 89th year. Wow, 89. So they're, you know, they're living a good. I was surprised at the length of longevity of the people in that period. Wow. And quite often at the bottom, you would get a little poem. I'll try and show you some of those in a second. Can you, yeah. So this is a marker here down in Cape Cod. The original stone's long gone. And he came to Plymouth about 1630. He was deacon of the church. And he's one of the first to come over in the Pilgrim Fathers in the ship the Mayflower. He was one of the first to come on the Mayflower. These ones I took down at Cape Cod. And one of the strangers ones, I was walking around the cemetery and looking at all these stones. It was a very hot day in the middle of July. So there was a bench, a stone bench, and I went to sit down on the bench and I kind of looked at it and got up to look at it, and there's writing on the bench. And the bench was a gravestone. And on the bench it says, "Hey, come sit with me a while. I was once a young man like you." And oh my God, wow. So, watch where you put your ear in down. Hingham, England. So another one of the first people to come on the Mayflower. 64. Another Mayflower passenger, Cape Cod. He lived in Cape Cod and died down there. So he was one of the passengers that came over in the Mayflower. All the original headstones, of course, are gone from that period, but they have metal markers to mark their graves today. This is Pines Cemetery here. Yeah, Samuel Wilson. This is good old Samuel Wilson. If it's good enough for Sam, it's good enough for me. Up in Troy, New York, this is his gravestone. Uncle Sam, Samuel Wilson, the man that gave the name to Uncle Sam. In the War of 1812, he was supplying beef to the army and so forth, and if it was good enough for Uncle Sam, it was good enough for me. Samuel Wilson, that's his gravestone. And this is Troy Cemetery too up here. Some of them are huge, like. This is a vault we walk on, this is all under the earth, and you've got tombs all on the walls, one after the other. It's an amazing structure to see, but they must have serious money. Like, that's a kind of vault there, like. Can you imagine?
Where is it?
Troy, over Troy, New York, upstate. So like the amount of money that was in that was a big machine company and so forth in that period, and there was a lot of money in the town. Not today. Another the huge vaults. George Tibbets, that's his tomb. And the Union General Tibbets is buried there as well. All right, now Fran, would you like to do yours next, please? Uncle Sam. I'll just bring yours up now. Let me sit there. Sure. Will we get Fran's up now, guys? Fran, here.
Okay, this is one of my mysteries. This is in the Dorchester Cemetery. There's a Civil War soldier buried outside the walls of the cemetery. Now, does that mean anything to any of you?
No. There's a Civil War what?
Civil War soldier buried outside the wall of the cemetery. And I've always read that anyone buried outside the walls of a cemetery, it's unconsecrated ground. So I had to dig into this to find out why he was outside the walls. And I finally found out he always wanted to be buried in this cemetery, but when he died, there were no lots left. So they buried him outside the wall.
Wow. Oh, I see.
Daniel, it's Daniel Keyser, and he was in the New Hampshire 5th. This stone is unbelievably huge. I had to take a picture of it. It's in Franklin, New Hampshire.
How big is it?
Way high,
12, 15 feet?
more than that.
Oh my God.
I have never seen a gravestone as huge as that one was, and I just had to take a picture because I've never seen one that big. This is our Civil War soldier who was in the Kentucky Volunteer. And he was a black man, and he came to Lebanon in 1864, so he came here before the Civil War was over. I don't know why he came or why here, but he worked for the railroad.
And they die here?
He died here.
Where's he buried?
He is in the Glenwood Cemetery in Lebanon.
Oh.
And his grandchildren, it's his wife and his grandchildren are buried there also. That's his grandchildren, their name was Robinson. This one is a big one in Lebanon and Glenwood. It kind of looks like what you see on the front of a ship, but I didn't find anything that indicated that these people had anything to do with the ocean.
And who was Slayton?
Slayton.
Who was it?
Slayton Hill?
Is that who it is? What's Slayton?
Henry Slayton.
Where from? Or is
From
who-
Lebanon, from
is
Lebanon.
that Slayton House called after him, Fran?
I would imagine so.
Wow.
Okay, this one is in lime, and this is a four-sided gravestone. And Turner Grant died in the Civil War, is on one side. And John Gilbert is on another side. And Charles Lovejoy is on the third side. And on the fourth side, it tells the story of these three boys. Earnest and active in the Redeemer's service, and united by the dearest lies of friendship, from the strong impulses of Christian duty and the patriotism they enlisted in the 11th Regiment, New Hampshire Volunteer, August 1862. Together they shared the vicissitudes of a soldier's life and fought side by side at the Battle of Fredericksburg. At Newport News, Virginia, stricken nearly together by the same disease, God's finger touched them and they slept. Their remains rest together beneath this monument until the resurrection morn. Lovely and pleasant in their lives, in their death, they were not divided. I think that's a beautiful tribute. This is a well-preserved stone that's in Pine Tree Cemetery. Robert Miller was one of our Lebanon Civil War soldiers. He was older when he went into the Civil War. He and four of his sons went to war, and he is a Medal of Honor winner. Okay, this Churchill everybody thinks that's a Nazi symbol, but it's not. He was the Indian agent for the Cherokee Indian Nation, and this is a symbol of life to the Indian Nation.
I saw that. Kids used to show it to me and say, Mr. Coyler's a Nazi, buried over him. You know, there's a German over there and his name's Churchill. He used to tell me that.
And this is Judge Cragen, and he also had the symbol on his gravestone, but someone tried
Hey,
to,
look, see,
they
reason-
spray painted it because they thought it was,
I thought it was a Nazi symbol. He's
Yeah.
trying to get rid of it. Wow.
but it means the circle of life. This is our most noted Civil War soldier buried in Lebanon, Captain James B. Perry. He's the most written about
He was 27 years old when he joined the Civil War, and he lost his life at Fredericksburg.
Wow.
And he saw the flag boy go down, and he went out to retrieve the flag. He was shot down. Another captain was shot down. Several privates were shot down trying to retrieve the flag. And his last words were, "Where is it?" They said, "We have it." And he said, "I'd like to see it one more time before I die." And he kissed the flag and then died.
Wow.
Okay, Roger D. Smalley is a Lebanon resident, but he was a Confederate. He happened to be teaching in Kentucky when the war broke out, so he was a musician from the Kentucky troops.
So he joined the Confederate side,
Yes, he did.
even though he's from Lebanon?
He's from Lebanon. This is the backside showing Frank's Stores. You know, I'm sure you've all heard the name Stores in Lebanon. And I took this picture because I think it's a beautiful stone. The front of it is very well preserved.
Is that marble?
I believe so.
Probably.
Yeah, that's the front of it. And I couldn't believe how it's not chipped off or anything. Annie Taylor, she was one of our black ladies, and underneath her date it says born to slavery.
Here?
Here, she's in the West Lebanon Cemetery.
So she's born into slavery?
She was born into slavery. And then right beside her is her mother, Eliza Young. And underneath her stone, it says, an old slave.
Yeah.
And she lived and died in West Lebanon. This is a tomb right in the middle of White River beside the VA hospital.
Oh, I saw it before.
And, you know, right in the middle of all this congestion, you see this family tomb. It's all rights.
That's it.
Right, that's the same tomb amongst all the businesses there.
I see now, we go back to see.
I believe that's it.
I think that's it.
So I just picked out a few little unusual ones in Lebanon for you.
This is some I took over in Italy, and over there, they bury, well, people bury them differently. This is ones that are buried actually on the wall, bishops and so forth, high members of the church and the ecclesiastical are buried here in walls and tombs and so forth. Here's another, they're buried one after the other, like in different heights, all the different bishops and cardinals of the town. This particular town in Italy is, this is actually painted into the plaster here. And it's amazing, what amazed me is like, people would come, the town was Verona in Italy, and down through the history, like, this is 1390, if you look here, 1390. And people would come here to this fresco, which is painted, when the cement or the plaster was still wet, they applied the paint onto it and it dried. And guys would come along, and I guess just like today for graffiti, they put their name up on the thing. So you've got this wonderful piece of artwork from the 1200s, these guys are sticking their names up on the top of it. For example, here's someone wrote 1390 from Verona. So this guy visited this particular tomb and stuck his name up on top of it. And that's 100 years before Columbus even came to America. This is one 1460. Somebody put his name onto it. So the guide that was taking us around was showing us these beautiful frescoes going back to the 10th, 11th, 12th century. And people later were coming and just sticking their name across it and didn't think twice. 1486, again, 1482, Columbus comes. So this is again before Columbus, this guy visits this particular tomb. 1309, or I think it's 09, I can't make it out. 1775, 1780. And this is just the church itself. This is where they're buried in the walls. So So the Italians, and different people put their dead buried differently. When I went down to Peru, most of them were buried above the ground. And the way they do it was they called them baker's ovens, which was kind of a above the ground tomb. And they pushed the body in. And then they'd always leave the entrance to it with little holes and cracks in it, so that flies could get in, or little insects to decompose the body. Because by law, not by law, but by tradition and culture in Peru, the Spanish tradition, if the body didn't completely decompose in, say, 1 year, you get the heebie-jeebies or something wrong with the kid, they didn't make it to heaven type of thing, you know. So they'd always leave the entrance open to let flies get in to make sure the body would decay in, say, 12 months. And then the front was opened up, and they got a big shovel, and they pushed everything to the back, the bones, for somebody else to come in. Kind of weird, but that's the way they do it down there. I'll just finish off by showing you. Okay, I'm going to switch on that light over there in the corner, please. The light. I'll just show you the last one I got there. Guys, this is a gravestone rubbing which I took over at Dartmouth. I'm going to take the kids from the class over there in the school. I usually ask them to do a gravestone rubbing and so forth. Oh, take this in here. Well, this one here is a rubbing of a gravestone in Dartmouth College. Here lies ye remain of Mr. Levi Washburn of New Braintree, late a member of ye school at Dartmouth College. In this place, who died by a short and violent death at 18 years of age. Here youth and beauty, life and grace in this reclaced and gloomy place, till the angelic trumpets sounds and awakes the saint from underground. So this is I show this to the kids in the school, and I ask them, well, do you want to become a historian? Find out who he was and what happened to him.
What was the violent death?
Exactly.
Huh?
Great question. That's what all my kids say. Oh, Mr. Coyle, what was the violent death? What did he die from? Was it suicide? Did he get killed? Murder? So this is what they automatically all think, you know. So I get them to go and research this to find out exactly.
So you didn't answer.
Do you want me to answer it?
You didn't answer.
No, I wouldn't tell the kids. That's their homework. You have to go and find out. So they had to go to Dartmouth and research and find out who was this guy. And he's from Braintree. What Braintree? Braintree, Massachusetts, Braintree, Vermont, Braintree, New Hampshire. What Braintree? So we've got very little to go on, but usually come up with an answer with a bit of guidance. All right, so what did he die from? The short and violent death? Smallpox. Died of smallpox. Short and violent death. So that's real history being done, guys. Gravestones again. Thank you guys for all your time. And myself and Fran, we really enjoyed presenting to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer them. Thank you.